Hi everyone, my name is Carolina Morales and I'm going to be discussing individualistic versus collectivistic societies. I was particularly drawn to this topic because I've grown up in a household where we've kind of incorporated both into our lifestyle. And this is due to the fact that I've grown up here in America where individualism is very high, but we come from a Cuban background where collectivism is very high. So it's kind of interesting for me to be able to see how I have adapted both of these lifestyles into my own home and the way that I live. Looking at individualistic societies, we see that these normally are seen more in North America and in Western Europe, and a few of their main characteristics include high levels of independence, high levels of self reliance, meaning we're relying on the individual to complete their own tasks, achieve their own goals. And then we see that there's an emphasis of the individual over the group. So this means that the individual is prioritized over the family or the community or whatever group they belong to. And there's also a greater need for self-fulfillment in these kind of societies. Looking at collectivistic societies, we normally find these in places like Asia and in South America. And a few of their main characteristics include loyalty to the group above all. There's high levels of compromise because people in these groups are compromising to what the group wants as a whole. And then there's an emphasis of the rights of the family and community over the individuals. So the group comes over yourself in this sense. And then people in these groups are normally working towards common goals. Then looking at some of the highlights and pitfalls of individualistic societies, some of the highlights include higher self-esteem and confidence and an overall more enjoyable life. This is due to the fact that the individual is looking out for themselves, really. And then some of the pitfalls include actually higher risk of cardiovascular disease, which is very shocking, smaller support networks, and lower emotional competence. However, when we look at the highlights and the pitfalls of collectivistic cultures, we see that they have stronger support networks, higher efficiencies as groups, and higher levels of selflessness and empathy. And then the pitfalls include that they actually have higher levels of social anxiety. And because they're kind of working towards these common goals and they're prioritizing the group over themselves, quenches their personal interests. One thing I wanted to point out, and I wanted to ask you guys, did you notice that these two types of societies seem to be inversely proportional? So, where one type of society lacks, the other one abounds. So, individualism lacks in empathy and selflessness, the other one abounds, and vice versa, right? And then the personal identity of these individuals in these groups is found by either the group or the individual. And what I mean by this is that an individual in an individualistic type of society will say that they identify as an entrepreneur or a manager or an achievement, right? Rather, someone in a collectivistic society will say, I'm a great parent or a great sibling or great, fill in the blank. These are the references of my presentation, and that is the end. I hope you enjoyed.